I'm Annie,
And I'm Leah.
and this is Lactation Business Coaching with Annie and Leah, where we talk about the smart way to create a compassionate and professional private practice.
Let's dive in.
Hey there, Leah.
Hey, Annie. Good to see you again. How are you?
I'm how I always am, just hitting the ground running at the start of the week. How about you?
Same here. Just ready to tackle all the lists of things that need to happen and remembering that I'm only one person. I can only do so much. So I'm just going to take it one step at a time over here.
Totally. I've been in a morass of dealing with insurance related stuff, which is why it was just so great to have that deeper dive with Rebecca a few weeks ago and just really think about it and think hopefully we're going to be able to create some more space for those kind of questions about the business side of things because like the insurance stuff affects your money and we've got to figure it all out. And that's why I'm also excited that our next deeper dive is coming up April 27th, and it's with Chandra Matos, IBCLC, and she's got a lot of great insights about business strategy and marketing and SEO and website design. And we are putting together a great program. We are planning to apply for CERP for it. That is coming up on April 27th at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And you can register for that just by going to lactationbusinesscoaching.com and you will see a registration link on that page.
I'm really excited about that one as well. It's just like one of the many hats we wear as private practice owners. We have to keep our attention on all these different things. So these deeper dives are so nice because they're like, after I leave them, I'm like, okay, I wore that hat today. And now I have my list of things to do when I'm wearing that hat. And then I'm like, okay, next hat, marketing. Okay, put that hat on, remind myself of all the things I need to focus on. It really does help me so much to just put on those hats. Sometimes we just shove them in the back of the closet and we're like, I can't wear that hat right now. I love having these moments to like refocus, learn new things, add in new strategies, systems that help us not make mistakes, all the things. So I'm excited about that too. But today we're going to be talking about when life knocks you down. You might have personal issues going on. You might have a pandemic. You might have things that are outside of our control. There's so many things that can impact our ability to run our business that might be outside of our control or, event health concerns, things that are really slowing us or making us have a full stop in our private practice. And it's something that we really need to consider because when you hit the ground running, like we always do, we think, oh, everything's going to be just like this forever. And then, as Annie and I have realized, I've had some huge life events that like literally took me out of practice for a while. And I've also had a bunch of small stuff, just overwhelm or burnout, where I'm like recognizing, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out. But have you experienced that, Annie? I know you have, but tell me how you feel about it. Those things that have happened that have pushed us back from running our business.
That's been the story of my year so far this year in 2022, because I started the year by getting COVID like so many other people. And that really knocked me out, not just the part where I was sick, because I did get sick. I didn't have the COVID where it was like, I tested positive, but I was fine. I was like sick in bed. And then I had some like lingering fatigue and like brain fog issues that have thankfully gone away. But I've also, in addition to that, I've been dealing with some major like tooth and gum work and had to have a procedure on my foot, which means my doctor's like, don't walk on it for a
Oh
month.
my gosh.
It's just been a lot of interruption and a lot of uncertainty, and then a lot of playing catch up around it. We were thinking about preparing for this episode, and I was looking over the note that you put together. I was like, how much of this stuff do I feel like I know is a good idea? And how much of it have I actually done? And present Annie doesn't have a lot to thank past Annie for so far. The first couple months of 2022, I really was flying on just, it'll be fine. And it's okay when it's not fine, but you do have to prepare for it.
Yeah, definitely. The major one that like I learned the most from, we always learn from things that happen in our lives. My son, when he was 13 and a half, had a bike accident. He had a skull fracture and a brain bleed from it. It was a Saturday afternoon and had a full week of clients coming. And then I was out for 6 weeks because he was in the hospital and then he had to go through rehabilitation. And oh my gosh, did that put a huge impact on my business. And I was completely unprepared for that. Had nothing other than thank God for the other lactation consultants in Houston. I was able to like just refer everybody out, but I wasn't able to do that. I had to pass all that off to my admin at the time because I was in the PICU with my son. I couldn't be dealing with client issues or their referrals. So I think the number one thing I learned from that is to have some kind of like policy and procedure. So if something tragic happens, one of my other LCs had a child that got really bad sick and was like in the ICU, and it was similar. We had to like just jump in and figure out, okay, what's the plan? So I think having some kind of awareness of what would you do? You hate to think those terrible things might happen in your life, but what would you do? Okay, this is going to be the process, and write it down somewhere, because that way you can say, hey, just look in this policy and procedures manual. It says what to do, like go. And then you can step completely away, because when it's your kid or your family member or somebody that you care about or yourself, like you can't then be rescheduling clients or talking to them. You need to be all in where you're needed. And so I think that was something that I learned from that moment. It's like we were unprepared with some kind of process, you know?
And I think one of those policies that you can come up with, to your point earlier, Leah, about being so grateful for your community of local lactation consultants, is having that list of people to refer to when you need to. Cause sometimes you're going to be able to plan ahead and be like, okay, I'm having foot surgery. And so I'm going to need to stay off, not work for a week or whatever it is, or just be virtual. But there's other things like what happened with your son, where it's like life changed in like instantly and your family becomes your immediate priority. And so being able to pull the trigger on like, I have 8 clients booked this week and I can't see any of them. And being able to send off that message to be like, I've had a family emergency, please contact this person, or just even pulling them, being able to pull them into your practice and just say, help, I can't even take these over. I can't even send these texts.
Yeah, and that's one of the many benefits of talking to the other LCs in your area, being familiar with them, having each other's back, I think is like so invaluable. And then don't forget, I know a lot of LCs that have private practices, we've heard them on deeper dives and stuff tell us like, hey, I'm the only person in my area. What would I do? And don't forget, now we have the blessing of there's like hundreds and hundreds of LCs that provide virtual support, and so don't forget to know about those LCs. You might be just making some notes and connections with lactation practices that have virtual options from across the world. They'll do virtual options because those are great resources when you are in an area where maybe you're the only LC, and just to know about them. Like you think, oh, I'll never have to use that, but just in case, just know who they are, have a list, get their contact information, make that connection so you have that. But I think it was, like, the person who helps us, like, plan our retirement and everything. That's who it was. She was like, "Do you have disability insurance?" And I'm like, "Never crossed my mind." Have you looked into disability or FMLA insurance for your private practice?
I don't have FMLA insurance, but I have disability insurance. I have workers' compensation for
Sure,
myself. So
sure.
there is coverage. And I think I have had disability insurance since even before I had a lactation private practice, just like in my life,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. It was
for all the other jobs I've done.
I hadn't thought about it, but, of course, now I'm like, "Oh, yes, please do all that," because I'm realizing, like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that can take you out for sure. Have you had an instance where you did, oh my gosh, I've got to reschedule people? Like when you're COVID, like what steps did you take? Like looking back the process when it does happen, when those things do happen.
There's like the moment of panic where what am I going to do? And I tend to like just freeze when I'm panicked, or I'll freeze and then instantly be like, I just need to do something. And so I'll do the first thing that comes into my mind, which is often like an overreaction to the situation. So I don't know. Don't be like me.
We're learning from our mistakes.
Yeah. I think it just starting with I've had a family emergency and I'm going to have to reschedule you. And then I would immediately reach out to one of the people I know who serves that area and be like, I have a family emergency and I need to transfer all of my clients to somebody else. Can you help me? I think what's hard to imagine for me is the part where I wouldn't have to handle all of that. I have an admin who helps, and now I have an independent contractor who's with me. I think they could step in. They could
Mhm.
step in. But if it was just me, I don't know. You would have to be like at somebody's bedside texting people. And the
Yeah.
trick would be like to just like really make them go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's where I think about my Spruce account and how I have auto phrases, like to have stashed down in those auto phrases, like, I've had a family emergency. Please contact these other lactation consultants. I will not be able to serve you at this time. I'm terribly sorry. Like, I'll reach out when I'm available again. Like, in that instance with my son, it's just like your brain can't, I couldn't process anything. I could barely think straight. And so if I was the one that had to do that, I would need something predetermined language, predetermined people. Like, I would not have even been able to think about who are the lactation consultants in Houston. I don't think my brain could have processed anything else. Just give the gifts to yourself of having those just little things like that. What exactly am I going to say if that were to happen? If something were to happen and I was sick or family member was sick and I just like 100% cannot care for these people and I need to pass them off, what is going to be the first thing? It's going to be like, I just already have the language. I can copy and paste. If you have somebody who is working with you, you could just hand it off and they already have the right language to use. And you can say, okay, here, just take care of these people. But I also, like you said, our first thought is, oh my gosh, I'm letting these people down. And you might beat yourself up. Can't believe I'm having to do this to these poor people. And they've been waiting for an appointment. But it's like, life happens. These things happen. We have to like be very gentle with ourselves. And I think sometimes what happens is maybe it's not like a full stop, like these kind of crazy things that we're talking about happening, like you needing a foot surgery or my son getting hurt. It could be something where you're burnt out or you're sick or you're going to need to pull back. Like, maybe you have a child who is not deathly ill, but has something going on for them that you need to pay more attention to, needs appointments and things like that. So you're going to need to pull back. But I think that's where I know, Andy, you're really good at this is like knowing, okay, what's the bare minimum amount of consults that I need to do in a timeline to, just make sure I can sustain our life, pay my rent and get food for my family. Knowing that I think is really gives you some peace because you're like, okay, I don't have to push myself. Once I hit my bare minimum, I'm going to refer out. I'm not going to try to add in extra people or do any extra work. And I can hold this boundary that I need to hold right now for myself. It might be for you because you're feeling overwhelmed, or it might be somebody in your family or a friend, whoever needs you. Boundaries need to change. I think that's so valuable. And I know you've processed those numbers in your mind. I feel like I've heard you talk about that before.
Yeah. I think knowing the numbers is so important because when you're in private practice and you are a small business owner, you don't have sick days, you don't have personal days, you don't have vacation days, you don't have those kind of benefits unless you give them to yourself. So, one approach would be to look at, okay, here's what I need to make in a year, and starting to divide. I want to make this much money. Okay, how much is that a month? How many consults in a month do I have to do to make that amount? And then you look and you say, okay, I want to give myself a week off in the winter holidays. I want to give myself a week off in the summertime. And I want to make sure I've got, these 2 weeks of sick days and personal days that I can just use. Looking at how can you bank your consults? Like, is it like, okay, at this moment, I'm going to try to do more than feels comfortable or that I like to do, but I'm banking that against the day when I need to do less. It's really important to look at it that way. Another way to also look at things is to look in not in terms of like how much money can I get in my bank account through doing consults, but thinking of it in terms of a business that has revenue that pays you a salary. And that can be an actual salary through payroll if you're an S Corp, which is what I am. And what I do is that I get a monthly salary that is not based on how often I worked, and to look at how you can structure your revenue streams to sustain your salary so that you keep
Mhm.
getting paid even if you get sick. That was a very difficult shift for me to make. I spent a long time looking at my business more like an ATM. I'm like, how much money came in? So that means that's how much money I have. But that means that you're going to be stuck in like a real just paycheck to paycheck mindset. And listen, I have lived paycheck to paycheck where I have overdrawn my bank account paying bills. Like that has happened to me in my life. And I never want that to happen again. The way for me to look at that has been to focus on really recognizing that I'm trying to build a business that can take care of me, not
Yeah.
make money to pay my bills.
Yeah, I think that's such a good shift to have. And obviously, we can't be thinking about that too much in the middle of some crisis or event. So, having some awareness around those numbers and what is required can be like give you peace of mind in the moment. Like, you're already going to be stressed with something else, some other life circumstance happening. Like we talk about, like past Annie can give future Annie this wonderful gift of a tiny bit of peace of mind. I think that's where knowing about this financial aspects, knowing about the policy and procedures if it's like a crisis situation, and then also like maybe thinking through what are you able to delegate because it's not just clients that we have to think about. Like we manage a business, we have bookkeeping to think about, claims processing, invoicing client. There's so many pieces to the back end of things that we might need to delegate if we're really having to pull back, or we might need to think about what's the bare minimum I can do in this area of my business management that would keep us afloat while I'm dealing with this life crisis. And you might just think through that. You don't have to have, certainly, it's always great to write things down in your policy and procedures book, but I think it's very helpful to just kind of think through. I wish I could have gone back and given my gifts when my son had the accident. What was all that going to look like? And you hate to think about, like I said, the worst things that could happen, but just kind of thinking through who would I delegate to? Who would I lean on? And I think the other helpful thing is like telling if there's an event, like having someone tell or you tell people that refer to you commonly, hey, I'm going to be out for a while, so don't refer people to me, because then you're going to have less of those requests coming in, less pressure on you to figure out how to deal with those requests, or making sure that they know, hey, this is going to be temporary, but I had a family emergency. I think that's really helpful too. That's word of mouth happened in our town when my son was hurt, and people like nobody then called me, which was really nice because I was like, if people had kept calling, at least the people from the referral sources, they knew to help them find other support. So I think that was helpful and something to think about. But there's going to be a point where, hey, you get through the crisis and okay, I'm ready to jump back in. I've, you know, gotten to the other side. I've gotten my life situated in a place where I'm ready to jump back in. What are some of the things that you could did in issues when you've had issues like this where you step back and jump back? What are some of the things that guided you or helped you?
I think going slowly and not overwhelm myself has been a big thing. So saying, okay, I'm going to rest my foot for a week, but when I'm cleared to walk again, I'm not going to book myself 5 consults on my first day back. Like, it's also okay for me to be like, book 2 consults, home visit, to
Mhm.
be reasonable about it. And I think that is like the hardest thing because I think any unexpected break from work does give me income insecurity, just like
Totally
stress. It's
start.
like, I
Yeah.
gotta make the money. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to work. And now I'm gonna make up for lost time. You can't think that way because you'll make yourself worse.
Yeah,
And
you'll just end up back where you started.
exactly. And really being the slow, measured approach does serve you best in the long run. I don't know if you think this way, but my brain wants to be like 5 consults equals this much money. But 5 consults under hurried, frantic, desperate conditions where I'm driving myself to do them means burnout, exhaustion. I'll just show up poorly. And those 5 might mean less
In the long
business
run.
down the road in the long run, whether it's me or because I'm getting bad reviews for being like, all right,
Yeah.
moving on, keep going.
Next.
No, but saying like, okay, if I really just, I'm like, what would I do if I hadn't taken 2 weeks off? I would be seeing 2 home visits today and I would not be squeezing in a third because it will come. You need to
Yes.
take care of yourself. And hopefully you've got that business that is taking care of you, that you put those things into place. You have an income cushion so the bills can get paid and you can dip into savings a little bit and look at repaying yourself over the long term, not in the
Mhm.
immediate term.
Yeah, definitely. And I know one thing that happened for me, I was out, I think, a full 6 weeks. My brain was not anywhere near lactation. Like I was all in traumatic brain injury mode. I was learning everything I could, trying to help my son. Like I pushed everything about a baby or breast or chest out of my head for a solid 6 weeks because I was all in his rehab and just working with him every day so that he could get better. And so I also had to go slow getting back into the groove because I was totally out of the mindset. If I had to overwhelm myself with, okay, I'm back, I'm going to do as many visits as I could possibly do, I think, yeah, I would not have shown up as the best lactation consultant. I had to dip my toes back in the water and kind of get back in my groove. And going slowly was a gift to myself. And it was hard because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back. I've got all these people that like really want to see me, but I was like, nope, I got to take care of myself because although my son was better, we still had a long road ahead of us. And so it's like, if I go crazy and burn myself out or do too much, it could all end up even worse and we'll be back in the same place. And then you got to let everybody know you're back too. So making those connections back with your referral sources and the other lactation consultants that you've been referring to. Hey, I'm back. I'm ready to do some visits. And you might not do that right away. You might just like slowly start letting those trickle in as well as you get back in gear and you're like, okay, I'm ready to take this back on. And all those things you delegated, don't go too fast bringing them back into your life. Pick them up if you were able to delegate some things, like pick them up as you can. I think that's really thoughtful too. I don't think I did that as well as I could have. Now looking back, you can always learn so much looking back, right?
Totally.
Any other lessons from your experiences where you've had these issues or life events that you think are like, okay, if I did it again, I would definitely do it like XYZ?
Yeah, I think that the being slower about and not working from a place of being frantic and trying to compensate for what has been lost by circumstance, but thinking about, okay, let me build this back, but it doesn't have to be today. And that definitely is something I can reflect on and say, basically because of COVID, it was COVID and planned time off at the holidays, but I didn't work for almost 5 weeks
Wow.
all in. I was too tired to do virtual. I couldn't do a home visit. And at this point, by the time we're recording this, which is at the end of March, I have made up for that, but I did it over the course of weeks, not like immediately. It's the kind of thing where you're like when you're working with a family and like they just had their tongue tie release and they want to know when is it going to be better? And you're like, it just needs time. We do all the things too, of course. But there's that piece of it where it's like it will be different at some point, and I can't tell you when that is. And I know that you can't necessarily believe it, but you see it over and over again that time really does help.
I know tinctures of time are like the hardest medicine to take. Like, I can't accept that this will be any better or different. I totally agree. And I also wish that I had I had moments where I let the stress of, oh my God, this is going to ruin my business. Am I going to be like, this is the end? And I was willing to accept that, obviously, for my situation. I was like, okay, my son, okay, if I lose my whole business, like, I'll figure something out. But I hated that the stress of that would come into my head every once in a while. When I had to turn somebody away, I'd be like, oh my God, what if this is the end? What if I'll never recover from this? And I wish I could have been the little voice in my head to be like, you're going to be fine. Your business is fine. You'll be able to build it back up. Like, don't stress about this. Don't give energy to this. Give energy to what is in front of you and needs your attention right now. And if I could go back to past Leah and just like whisper in her ear, let that go. That's not a thought we need to even chase down. Everything's gonna be fine. And obviously it is. It's like many years later. I think it's been, oh my gosh, it's been 8 years since that happened. 8 years later. And look, hey, we're still growing strong and everything's totally fine. Past Leah at the moment was really wondering in moment. So that would be my advice to you. If you're having something, like, don't be afraid to take that time if you need it. If it's something, mental health issues or overwhelm or burnout, like, it's so much more valuable to focus on what you need to be healthy and well, or what your family might need to be healthy and well and in a good place, and then do your business full throttle. So that's my reflection,
Totally.
lessons I've learned.
When something catastrophic happens in your life isn't going to be the same again. And you don't know where that journey is going to take you. And so anything you can do to stay in the moment, rest on what you have built up and the processes and procedures and policies and local network and support and all those things you built around yourself, because you don't know, like, you could find yourself, your life completely changed. And you're like, I now have a completely different life than I did 6 weeks ago. And that life doesn't include being a lactation consultant. And that's okay. And if you're meant to have it come back, it's going to come back. And it might not be like things being fine, might not be like things get to be exactly how they were before this happened,
Exactly.
but it's going to be different. Like, the things that you're feeling in this moment, you are not always going to be feeling them. And you need to give yourself space and room to sit with them. Be present for this crisis that needs your attention.
Yeah.
That's the best way you can take care of yourself.
Yes. So we are sending like so many hugs out to anybody out there that might be experiencing this right now, because Annie and I both know how hard these times are when something has really shifted in your life and your business has to take a back seat. But we hope that these tips and strategies and learning from all of our mistakes, which is Annie and I's specialty, don't do what we did. Here's what we learned. We're sharing that will help you move through this. And we send our love and hugs to you if you're going through a hard time right now. And we know your business is going to be just fine, or it's going to be just what it's supposed to be. So thank you so much, Annie, for chatting today about this. I think this is such a needed topic and conversation. And I'm so happy that you were able to share your insights too.
Definitely. It was great talking to you, Leah.
All right. Talk again soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about our monthly deeper dives and how to support our podcast for as little as $1 a month, visit lactationbusinesscoaching.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.